he'd acted legally, and he was assured that, yes, he had. So there was a sudden change, I think, because it was just getting a little bit ridiculous, the idea that he couldn't talk to his own backbencher about this to make sure he'd done nothing wrong.
Yeah, so that continues, David. Let's talk about something that I think has a really tangible impact on people's lives. Nearly 230,000 people have lost their jobs in the month as COVID-19 continues to drag the economy down. This is actually higher than economists had predicted. This is a big issue, and it's leading to this debate, as we heard from Brendan O'Connor, about what happens to JobSeeker and what happens to JobKeeper. Yeah,
it sure does. 230,000 last month. That's 830,000 in just 2 months. It gives you a sense of the scale of the recession we're in now. And look, the Prime Minister, the Treasurer, didn't mince their words in Parliament, outside Parliament today, acknowledging this is devastating news. These are staggering numbers, and they're going to get worse. Look, you know, economists are saying that, the Prime Minister is saying that as well. So this isn't the worst of it yet. It does, as you indicate, sharpen the focus on what to do with JobKeeper and JobSeeker. Now, I've been having conversations this week about this, and you've heard more from the Prime Minister over the last couple of days too about this. I don't think decisions have been made. They're still waiting for further information, and certainly the Treasury review. But the language certainly indicates, and what I'm hearing indicates, they still want to end JobKeeper at the end of September, but they're going to need something to take its place, and it sounds like that will be some form of the JobSeeker approach. So no longer supporting jobs that aren't viable, the so-called zombie jobs in zombie businesses. Some businesses will be able to survive without JobKeeper, but some won't. So for them, it sounds like the hints are they'll go back onto a JobSeeker payment, not back to the old $40 a day of Newstart, but something between that and what JobSeeker now is, because that comes with the employment services help and so on. Look, whether this is the right way or the wrong way to do it, I'm not sure. It's very complicated, but that seems to be the government thinking at the moment. End JobKeeper, transition those who still need help away from that mechanism and something to more like the JobSeeker mechanism.
The government's also going to have to deal with, and we're going to be joined actually quite soon by former Sex Discrimination Commissioner Elizabeth Broderick on this, but the disproportionate impact this is having on women. And I know that they're talking about that, they're thinking about how to address that, but that's actually a huge issue for them, isn't it?
Yeah, women and young people, right? So the figures today confirm 52% of the jobs lost were women. So that's a majority, a narrow majority, but a majority of the jobs lost. 45% are young Australians. That's an alarming figure, nearly half. So yes, these are the people losing work. There is going to be a structural adjustment in the economy, and the government's well aware of this. You know, retail, yes, is opening back up, but fewer hours for the staff. They are seeing growth, and some retailers are in fact achieving already the same turnover that they were a year ago before all of this. But it's through online sales. So we're talking about a shift in the way retail works, and that's just one big employer, but one sector of the economy. If we're going to see that sort of transition, that is going to affect young workers. It is going to affect women in the workforce. So yes, what the government can do about this to assist in that transition, to help those who are hurt the hardest by this, these are very difficult decisions, and that's why the Prime Minister's been saying the coming months are going to be the most difficult decisions.
They sure will. David, just finally, the Prime Minister did meet with arts representatives today, some actually quite high-profile people. I think Guy Sebastian was there and others. It looks like they will deliver some kind of arts package.
Yes, there's been talk about that, and indeed a tourism and travel package as well, because that sector's obviously going to take ages to get back on its feet if international borders remain shut. But the flip side of that, some of the conversations I've been hearing this week amongst those I've spoken to, is that a sector-specific package is difficult. Where does the arts, let's take that for example, where does the arts and entertainment sector start and finish? If your job is catering and some of it's for you know, the entertainment or arts sector, or if you do lighting and PA work and some of it's for this and some of it's for that, are you included? If you're you know, a taxi driver in Cairns, I'm sure right now you would be suffering greatly because there's no tourism going on there. So you know, are they included in a tourism package? You can see the point I'm making is a lot of grey as to where a sector starts and finishes. So sector-specific packages may not be the easiest or the best way to go, but there's no doubt they certainly need some help.
David, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Pico.
David Spears is the host of Insiders on ABC TV at 9 a.m. on Sundays. Well, the Prime Minister says he will carefully weigh up the data before deciding on the future of JobKeeper and JobSeeker payments. Scott Morrison says the latest unemployment figures are devastating and could worsen in the coming months. The government put in place the JobKeeper wage subsidy and doubled the unemployment benefit through the Job Seeker Supplement in response to the coronavirus economic shutdown. Treasury is reviewing the payments, which were originally designed to remain in place until September. I spoke to the ACTU President, Michelle O'Neill, a little earlier. Michelle O'Neill, welcome.
Thanks, Patricia.
So we've got these new figures out on jobs today. How long do you want JobKeeper to remain in the system?
Well, we're shocked by those figures today and really feel for all the hundreds of thousands of Australian workers who are out of the job and how it's affecting them and their families. And we think there needs to be certainty about JobKeeper. We're calling on the government to announce now that they'll extend the program for 6 months.
OK, but the government says they're reviewing this system and everything is on the table. We won't get a decision till the end of July. Why isn't that time frame satisfactory?
Because we've got a lot of uncertainty at the moment, and that's not good for workers. It's also not good for the economy. We know things won't have recovered by the end of September. We know that for so many industries. You think about hospitality, tourism, retail, the aviation industry. If we've got half the domestic routes flying again, by then we'll have done really well. So there's no doubt that the economy is going to need support and workers are going to need support. So why should the government leave that uncertainty and an axe hanging over the head of those 3.5 million workers who are currently getting JobKeeper? And of course, we also know there's many who've missed out.
Well, the Prime Minister gave us some indication. He said to be able to predict what's going to be happening at the end of September this early is clearly unrealistic. Do you accept that making a decision this early doesn't actually take into account the economic circumstances at the time?
Well, I don't accept that that's good public policy or a good way to make decisions, because one of the things the government knows and one of the things that many economists tell us is that confidence is really important, and certainty about what's going to happen is what builds confidence. And workers need to know that, their families need to know it. We've already got, if you look at the unemployed figures, which are nearly 1 million, underemployed 1.7, that's more than 20% of the Australian workforce that's either not getting enough work or no work at all. And then if you think of all of the people on JobKeeper and what would be the impact if they were thrown onto the unemployment figures again, you can see how this is not good for anyone. Because what we know is that keeping people connected to jobs and keeping people with money in their pockets is what's good for small business and what's good for the economy recovering.
But why should it remain?
Leaving uncertainty in place.
But why should it remain if the jobs are going to no longer exist? Because economists say it could limit the ability of business to hire new workers.
Well, I don't understand that. If the business is recovering, then that's good. I mean, we think that there should be a quarterly check about the revenue drop, which is the threshold that businesses have to meet to get the money to pass on to the workers. So that should be checked. It should be checked on a quarterly basis. But if those businesses are still undergoing that severe drop in revenue and they're suffering as a result of that, isn't it better to give them a longer time to recover, to be able to make sure that those workers stay connected and maximise the chance that they're going to stay employed in that business and be able to really come back when the economy recovers over a longer period of time. If you just add more and more people to the unemployment queues, then that's not going to help anyone, because the jobs aren't there. It's not like the jobs are there to be filled. We know the reality is that the jobs aren't there today. They're not there already for the 20% of the population that's either unemployed or underemployed.
So if JobKeeper is brought out of the system at the end of September, what kind of job seeker, that's the unemployment benefit payment, would you like to see to cushion the difference? Are you going to be making a case for the kind of payment you think that the unemployment benefit should be?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that we cannot return to that cruel rate of Newstart. The thought that anyone would be sentenced to try and survive on $40 a day is completely unacceptable. And we think the rate that's been in place over the period of the pandemic is a fair rate, and what would be a sensible thing would be to continue it. We, of course, got to make sure that it works across everyone who's needing to get government support, and that there's not gaps in that system. But But the best thing is to keep people, whether they're unemployed or on a pension or benefit or with money in their pocket, because the less money you have, the higher proportion of it you spend. You spend that in your local economy. You spend it with small business. That is what's going to be part. It's the best stimulus. It's in fact the fastest stimulus.
So are you arguing,
to make sure
sorry,
that people have got money in their pockets?
If I could pin you down on this, you're saying that the unemployment benefit should remain double for what, another 6 months or permanently?
Well, we think there's no reason that it should be reduced at the point of the end of JobKeeper or when it's currently planned to be reduced in September. We think both the programs of JobSeeker and JobKeeper should be extended for at least another 6 months and it can remain at the rates that they're at.
Okay, so if JobKeeper, the job subsidy scheme for those who are kind of still getting used to the terms, is phased out at the end of September, which is, you know, based on some of that reporting, if JobSeeker was kept at double the rate, would that be satisfactory?
No, because we want to see people connected to their jobs and kept connected to their jobs. And it makes no sense to just throw more people onto unemployment queues if there's a chance that a longer period of JobKeeper is going to mean that ultimately those workers stay employed in those businesses. Then that's the best outcome. It's the best outcome for the business. They keep their skilled, long-serving employees, and it's the best outcome for the workers because their job's still there for them. It just needs longer. We can't pretend that snapback is real. We all know that's not true. It's not going to happen in September. We want the economy to recover, but you've got to be realistic about this. There's different things happening in different sectors and industries, and there needs time before things can get back to normal.
What kind of support would you like to see for women? Because workforce participation beyond extending free childcare for women seems to be a huge issue. I know you've mentioned that, you know, you would like free childcare to remain. The government hasn't gone down that path. Should there be a specific package developed for women or feminised industries?
Well, I think the government has really got this wrong. They've ignored the fact that the pandemic impact has hit women harder in terms of both jobs lost, the proportion of jobs lost, but really even more so as far as hours lost. And removing free childcare, of course, is going to result in more women not even being able to be in the labour market looking for work because they're going to be reliant and need to be involved because of the disproportionate way that childcare works in looking after their children. So the government has been thinking, I think, about a stimulus in the economy that only really looks after some workers, and they happen to be mainly blue-collar male workers. Now, those workers need support. We need to see stimulus in things like construction and, importantly, in manufacturing, but that can't be the whole story. We need to make sure that there is support for public and community sector jobs, for jobs in healthcare, in aged care, in early education. These are the sort of jobs where women are predominantly working, and the government needs to have direct, targeted assistance to make sure that women get the hours they need and do something about the underlying problem, which is women are more likely to be in insecure work. So unless we address that fault line, unless we come out of this, and this is what our 8-point plan's about, come out of this with 2 million new secure permanent jobs, halving the rate of insecure jobs in this country, and injecting money into public and community sector and service jobs, then we won't get there. And let me give you an example. If you give people money to build a new bathroom, then there's a short-term amount of work for the tradie maybe in building it. If you invest public money in building new TAFEs or hospitals, you not only see the construction work, you see if you require local content, the manufacturing jobs, but really importantly, if you build a hospital in regional Australia, you're creating jobs for the workers, the nurses, the cleaners, the people doing the cooking, the doctors, and all the ancillary work that goes around a hospital. So you get that effect of actually creating service and health jobs as well as the construction jobs. Much better way of spending public money because it's for public good, not for private gain.